Welcome to the next Salu meetings. Today we will talk about the layer 1 encryption, as we see on the market that more and more companies, not only the financial sector but also the big enterprise, talking and discussing about how to make their data more protected. So that's why we will bring this topic today. Today we will talk together with Nino from PacketLight, which is our partner in terms of providing the devices which are able to encrypt the data using the layer 1 encryption.
Thank you, Martin, for inviting me. It's really great to be here. And this is a very important topic as we see several requirements for encrypting data. One, of course, is the enterprise desire to have secure transmission, but also very important that there are many regulations today, government regulations, especially in the financial sector, as well as in protecting personal data. So even the universities, hospitals, and any other types of financial and credit institutions are required in many countries by law to provide secure transmission of their data.
Exactly. We hear about the banking sector clients that they need to use this encryption layer 1 too.
So why encryption? What does it achieve? So there is, of course, the issue of confidentiality to protect the information against theft. There is data integrity, not to prevent interfering with data and changing it. And of course, the authentication or the authorization that the parties that are viewing the data are actually the parties who are intended to view the data. So these are the three very important assertions for employing the encryption.
And I think that is also very important to mention that the encryption is not new subject in the market.
Of course.
Especially when we talk about the layer 2 and layer 3 encryption. This solution exists on the market quite a long time, and we already know their advantages and disadvantages. And when we talk about the data traffic efficiency, this is something which is quite hard to deal with when we talk about the encryption layer 2 and layer 3. Because as we know, the encryption works with putting some extra data into the packet headers or the data frame headers. So if the packets are smaller, the efficiency of layer 2 and layer 3 encryption is lower. This will not exist when we talk about layer 1 encryption.
Absolutely. And in fact, layer 1 encryption is proven to be the most efficient way of encrypting transport data because the transmission is completely transparent with minimal overhead to the added packets. Therefore, the throughput and latency is maintained very low latency and very high throughput. So we have virtually zero loss of bandwidth when transmitting over layer 1 encrypted data packets.
So this is the big difference between encryption layer 1 and the technology like MACsec or IPsec, yes?
Absolutely.
I think that also the one what goes together with layer 1 encryption is the option to use the OTN standard. Right. Because of those, we are able to multiplex different kind of services, not only the one IP or Ethernet based. So this is also the power of layer 1 encryption.
This actually comes very much into requirement when we're talking also connecting and encrypting data between storage devices. So specific protocol of fiber channel and transmitting protected and encrypted fiber channel services between data centers of banks or other enterprise. And when we're talking about our devices, PacketLight devices, we are able to aggregate Ethernet and fiber channel services along with other different services of voice and STM and video, and encrypt each service separately with its own integrity and its own key exchange between the two ports on the device itself.
Okay, so because as far as I know from the configuration point of view, on PacketLight devices we could select either we want to encrypt the line interface, either we want to encrypt each client interface separately. What's the impact, how to benefit of one or the second option of encryption?
Yes, absolutely. Good question. I will give a little bit of an overview of how our encryption works in general. So our encryption solution for layer 1 is a software-based solution. It's something that we have developed in-house, but utilizing the standard-based encryption technology and tools and integrating this into our devices, into our software. So as a software, as a standalone software, can be applied right from the implementation of the network, or it can be applied even afterwards as a firmware upgrade and software implementation. Now, going back to your question, absolutely, we can encrypt either the entire pipe or this specific services. So this going back to Maxponder solution. So Maxponder is a device that aggregates different services and protocol types into one higher capacity uplink port. So we have several 10G and fiber channel protocols and services aggregated into one 200G wavelength or even one 400G wavelength, depending on the capacity requirement of the customer. So in this scenario, if it's a dedicated customer and let's say a single tenant data center, so it's a bank using for their data center connectivity these Maxponder devices, then it's more proper to use all the services to be encrypted, therefore apply encryption on the uplink port. So all the aggregated services, whether it's fiber channel or Ethernet service, or any other service for that matter, will be encrypted together with other services. At the same time, no crosstalk or crossover, okay? But when we're talking about applications, for example, service providers to such data center, for such enterprises or smaller enterprises, smaller data centers, then they have an option to offer their customers encrypted service or non-encrypted service. So it's also a tool for service providers to offer different services to their specific customers according to their requirements.
So saying it in a different way, the operator which decide to use the PacketLight Maxponder, they could sell based on the single device the services to few different customers.
Absolutely.
And each customer will have the way to manage their encryption services by themselves.
Exactly. And this is a very important point because when it comes to encryption, you don't want too many hands to have access to your key exchange and your administrator port. And in our management software, we have a separate access for encryption as opposed to all other managed operating and managing of the device itself. So in effect, an operator can operate the unit and give separate dedicated access to the end customer for managing the encryption portion.
Okay, so I have the one question. You said that the customer can see the key exchange. We can choose time to exchange this key?
No, the key exchange is actually a standardized mechanism, and we use Diffie-Hellman key exchange, which is really the highest standard for authorization authentication, and there shouldn't be any interference in that. But we, as a manufacturer and a service provider, would not have even access to this section in the management.
Okay. Diffie-Hellman, if I could remember, this is the encryption standard to exchange key.
That's
so
right.
This is standard which is used not only in encryption layer 1, but only in layer 2 and layer 3.
That's correct. For authenticating and ensuring that the two sides are the right sides to be exchanging the information.
Last time I read about the new type of the exchanges key. I think this is called the quantum exchange.
Yes, that's right. There is a development towards the quantum security, which actually works in combination with our software. So it's a parameter that stands before the encrypted data is transported. So we are working today to integrate with quantum provider companies and to work together with these devices and software to enable to carry this token along the encrypted data, along the transport lines.
Okay.
So it's again the proof that choosing the flexible and focused layer 1 provider help you to touch the newest available technology, also when we talk about the encryption.
So this is a very important point. Our product vision is really to provide flexibility on all levels to the operators and the end customer, whether it's on a hardware level. This is why we have the segregated chassis approach, where you can first of all have all-inclusive one-use devices on one hand, but on the other hand to aggregate and cascade multiple chassis for easy growth. And on the software version, we also give flexibility to, first of all, easy changing of ports and service assignment, and choosing which encryption is best for the customer, and also integrating with third-party encryption providers such as quantum encryption in order to satisfy customer requirements.
The other requirement we sometimes get from the customer is, or like maybe not requirement, but how the customer understands the solution. They think that if they have just single traffic or very simple data to encrypt, they should use the layer 2 or layer 3 encryption, because layer 1 encryption very often in their mind come together with the DWDM solution. How it looks from the PacketLight product portfolio?
So of course we have encryption on all our DWDM products and on the transponder sets as well as on the muxponder sets. But for a customer who is a small customer and is willing to, it really goes to the provider to lease a line, they can also request an encrypted line, and using the OTU and OTU2 or OTU4 infrastructure, we're able to even encrypt that small piece of services or small amount of services.
I think that now we are talking about the PL2000 ADS.
That is correct. In addition, even for the operator who have an existing network operator or service provider, and they wish to encrypt it because their current network is not encrypted, we can also achieve this very easily with our 2000 ADS device or any other device depending on what types of capacity and services they have. And with just 2 devices encrypt their entire traffic going through the network.
I think that it's worth to mention the PL2000 ADS is also the muxponder.
That's right.
So ADS.
And not only this, it can be achieved, like you said, without the DWDM technology, just using gray optics over actual dark fiber link. And that also makes the solution much more cost effective for these smaller enterprise customers.
So there is the way to go into the encryption, layer 1 encryption, without making the investment in the DWDM network.
Yes, it's also very important to highlight that all what we're talking about is very simple to configure and to monitor and to operate, and very intuitive. We really strive to have intuitive configuration, element management system, which is embedded into our products, and makes it for any existing IT resources, IT manager to learn it very quickly and easily. We also have a lot of built-in tools that assist to the IT managers of the same small or large enterprise to make it easier for them to manage and maintain the
This is in fact something what we noticed after all the presentation of how the idea of the configuration of PacketLight devices is designed. So when we did this presentation to the customer, when we showed them how the graphical user interface is designed, most of them, they are pretty surprised that so complex in the theory, the features, you are able to set in very easy way. Just with few clickings, you are able to set the max ponder feature, layer 1 encryption. You are able to get the information what's wrong in the network. And I think that is also worth to mention that if we talk about the simple application that we have just point-to-point connection, the basic version of EMS system is built into the devices. So because it's built in, we don't need any external management system to manage our network.
Or additional software, which involves, of course, additional server, additional operating system, etc., and maintenance, which, of course, is available from our offering. We have a fully enhanced network management software, an MS system, which is operating for large networks. But it is for smaller applications and for smaller and even some medium enterprise, our free, so to say, on-board element management software is fully equipped to provide all what an IT manager would require.
I think that for our audience also very important will be the question about the licensing, because we see the trend on the market that a lot of companies introduced a different way of licensing, making it sometimes really complex and nightmare for the customers. So this is the question for you: how looks the licensing in the PacketLight?
So actually, the encryption is the only license, the only licensed product that we have, and it's not licensed in general licensing understanding. It's really one-time license. It's a software, but it's really just one-time fee, and then part is just maintenance is a part of the entire project. But all other products are pretty much license-free. That is a product decision from our company, and we maintain and we stick to this product vision because we believe in flexibility for the customer side. So, for example, we've seen in other types of products, you need a license to upgrade the port or change the port protocol. For example, from Ethernet to fiber channel, or if you want to upgrade from a 10G to 40G Ethernet or to 100G Ethernet, then you need different license, and or request opening the license from the vendor itself. And in our devices, all ports are open, and you can change the port by drop-down menu, by clicking disconnecting the port if you want to change from Ethernet to fiber channel. It's no problem, and it's done in seconds with our EMS software, and it's very flexible. You don't have to come to us to request give us this change and that change. Now, this takes a lot of headache away from the customer. One, of course, is the cost. Although the license cost for ports and such may not be so high, but it still adds up. But I would say more importantly, it's the headache of putting a request and then waiting a couple days or more to receive the key and then try to implement it. And in some cases, only the dedicated vendor technician can access the system. So all of this is a lot of headache and inefficiency of operation, especially for smaller IT departments. And this is another big consideration that we have put into having no licenses. So in fact, on top of this, I would add that for our client ports, because we use all the standardized optical modules on the line side as well as the client side, all the client ports especially are open for use of third-party optical modules as well. So customer can use their own optical modules in these devices.
So it means that, for example, if you buy one of the new product, for example, 4000M max ponder, if we put there 400G optics, it's only our decision if we want this optics to work as a 200 gig, 300 gig or 400 gig mode. And we don't need to request any extra license or configuration scheme or whatever. We just pick some option from the drop-down menu and click apply.
That is correct. Specifically for 4000M, it's a very unique device because it is a muxponder of 400G capacity, but it does have two uplink ports, which allows actually a metro environment, and we can go up to 600G capacity in just one U, integrated with EDFA as well as optical switch if required. So it is a very unique application. So for long distances, you can, from the drop-down menu, choose if you want a 400G capacity or if you want to have a 200G capacity going over long distances. The same applies to our transponder, 400G transponder, which is a 4000T, aggregating four 400G lines in one U device and providing quite a lot of capacity, 1.6 tera, in one U device with EDFA and MUX-TMUX inside the unit itself. And there too, for operators going long distance, definitely an option to choose 400G, or for longer distances or even slightly less poor optical environment, then 200G option.
That sounds really flexible.
Yes.
I would like to emphasize one more thing, because we often think that some customers require the smooth upgrade in the future. How it works with the PacketLight device?
Right, a very good question. So we actually analyze the customer requirements today and for their growth needs tomorrow. So and then we try to really custom cater the right device for their needs. But if we take, for example, a muxponder device, the customer may not have, let's say take 4000M, a 400G muxponder device. A customer may not have 400G capacity requirement today, but they will be growing very soon. So they can start with just filling up 200G capacity on that device, and to grow, they just add optical modules. And this is also important that for adding these optical modules, again, they don't need a license or a permission from us. It's just having the right optics and just making that port active in the GUI. But if we're going on to more than 400G, so if the capacity of the unit itself is not enough, then we can cascade another 400G or even 800G unit and newer technologies as they come out.
Okay, but I have the very important question, especially I think for the financial and banking sector, about the certificate, because the technology encryption layer 1 use IS encryption standard. It is advanced encryption standard, which was developed by the National Institute of Standard and Technology.
Yes.
I think, the NIST, and it can be certificated, yes?
Yes.
Do you have certificate of this encryption standard?
Yes, absolutely. So there are two practices, so to say, in the industry. First of all, there are several laboratories or certification groups that provide approval of that your encryption algorithm is actually a proven and working encryption algorithm. That is, one is FIPS organization, which pretty much is accepted worldwide, FIPS 140 level 2, and the newer standards coming out, FIPS 140 level 3. And there is also common criteria, which is also accepted very much so in Europe and Australia and so forth. And of course, then there are individual countries that have their own local certification guidelines. But if we're talking about global certification bodies. These are the main and commonly accepted. Now, these bodies actually these organizations have the tools and laboratories and the infrastructure that allows them to measure and test and try to break into your certification mechanism and do all kinds of different attempts to break it, and in the end they give you an approval. They give you a certificate that says you have been certified, that your encryption license actually meets all the standards and all the requirements and cannot be hacked.
So we are the center that this
yes.
equipment have the license.
Have the license. So we, yes, of course, have certified. We have certificate, and this, by the way, can be checked also for each vendor on these respective organizations' websites by using the certificate number that the vendor provides. To ensure that, of course, and there is of course certificate that is displayed. Now,
so
the
this
other
is the difference, in fact, between being compliant to some standard and being certified.
Exactly.
Because everyone could say that they are compliant, but only very few vendors are true certified.
Absolutely. So this was what I started my discussion with, that there are two approaches. One is to have actual certificate, and then the other one is to be compliant. But saying that we're compliant is only statement mainly by the vendor. But without the
true
actual certificate, it is.
We are not really sure that
it's just
really good implementation. Yes.
Yes. So actually, a lot of customers come to us and ask us, so how do we check that you actually, your certificate actually works? By the way, our encryption is based on AES 256 encryption criteria, GCM. And 256, it's the highest standard.
That means the
today.
length of the encryption keys 256 bits, yes?
So this is our encryption criteria. So they come and say, how do we check that it really is encrypted? And this is when we show them our certificate, because this is the only proof that customers have that this actually works. These laboratories are third-party laboratories that are completely independent from any vendor bias. Therefore, these certificates are highly reliable.
So the best way to check it is just to check on their website,
yes,
on their database, if the certificate is indeed issued for the particular vendor.
Exactly.
So we, an ES encryption standard, we can two kinds of the authorization method. One is the GCM, second is the GMAC. GCM means that we can encryption and authorization, and the GMAC is only the authorization. Tell me, which one is in your device?
So we actually use GCM AES 256 encryption standard because it's all inclusive and covers both the authorization and the encryption side. Also, I want to highlight that encryption part of the data is just one component of the whole security layer encryption solution. Other two are physical layer and then the management plane as well. So when we're talking about physical layer, we're talking about actual fiber health. And our devices, part of the encryption license is a continuous monitoring of the optical budget over the actual fiber strand, and a slight change even is recorded and alarm can be sound. Because when there is a possible tapping attempt or some change on the fiber, we see this in change also in the optical power budget on the line, and this is right away identified, and an alarm can actually be recorded and notify the administrator.
I understand that we not only the encryption data, but only the keeping the fiber.
Yes, actual physical fiber optic cable is also monitored for possible tapping alarm.
This is something which, in fact, is very important, because I think that a lot of people have in their mind that we are not able to store some data from the fiber optic. That this is something which we are able to easily do with the copper cables, but the fiber cables protect us from it. And in fact, it's not true, because now it's very easy to tap the optical cable. So in fact, if the feature of constant power monitoring is built into the device, and this tapping alarm event monitoring will help us to detect that someone is tapping the alarm. Okay, we know that our data is encrypted and protected, but we also know that
someone is
trying to take out our data.
So physical premises are being compromised, and this is also very important to take note, because if somebody's trying to tap the data, they may also cut the cable, which damages the transmission and so forth. So very important to always have the health of the fiber optic cable. We of course have dedicated devices for monitoring multiple fiber strands with OTDR and also parameters for larger implementations and for operators and so forth, but this could be a topic for the other discussion. So in addition to the physical layer and the data layer, we also secure the actual management shell. The actual web GUI, which is used to access, to configure and change and maintain and operate the devices. And
so you mean that inside the management system, we also have built-in kind of firewall?
Absolutely. We have built-in firewall to prevent unauthorized access to the devices as well to the management plane. And itself, the whole management frame is secured with HTTPS access, because our EMS software is web-based.
Okay, so in fact we touch not only the data encryption, but we also focus on the physical layer and the access to the actual devices and the management system. So this only touching all these three areas make us sure that our data are really safe.
Yes, data and the devices.
And the device.
So we can do something like white or black list of IP address, which we can use to connect to the device?
There's actually a dedicated IP address for each device, and this is only accessible through an HTTPS secure gateway, and generally IT administrators keep it very secret and secure.
Okay.
So to summing up our discussion, the PacketLight device, first of all, they benefit from the very compact design.
Yes.
So all the devices are closed in the one U, and particularly, even starting from single device, give us access to all the features, including the transponder or matchponder feature, depends on which device we select. But it also gives us the full access to the encryption feature. And the encryption feature is not only the encrypting the data, but also taking into the consideration the fiber infrastructure. So this tapping alarm we discussed about, and also the access to the device, which is protected by a lot of firewall features which are included into the management system. So only taking into account all these three aspects could make our devices and network safe.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much for discussion.
Thank you. It was
It was
very
a pleasure
interesting.
to be here.